Go ahead and get started. So our agenda today, this is sort of an info session. We'll be doing this internship program with our Eco Ambassador this summer in partnership with Today and Esri, learning how to use tools like ArcGIS to tell stories about sustainability problems and solutions around SDG 14 on oceans and fisheries. So our agenda today is kind of to just share more information about what this program is going to be about and start brainstorming ideas with those of you who are interested in being part of the program this summer. So we'll start. Our Director of Education, Dr. Radhika Iyengar, will give us some background on our Eco Ambassadors program and our plans for the summer program, kind of broad strokes on that. And then we'll start talking a little bit about SDG 14. What are some of the key sustainability challenges and current research going on in that area? And we have Dr. Joaquim Goes from Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory to present on his research and some of the contributions that students have made to some of his research in the past to help us start brainstorming ideas on this. Then we will go over more details about the summer program this summer, what kind of training you should expect, mentorship support, what we expect some of the outputs to be from the students, and then what we hope you will learn and take away from this experience. And then we have some students and recent graduate with us, Charlotte Monson and Jeremy Zimmerman, who have both been part of Columbia University's Sustainable Development Program. And they'll help us think through how to go about brainstorming research topics and, aligned to the SDGs and ideas, again, on how we can use ArcGIS to help tell those stories. And then from there, we'll have an open brainstorming discussion where we invite your questions and start thinking through some of the ideas you have for this summer. So we have Dr. Radhika Iyengar with us, our Director of Education, who I believe many of you already know. And she'll kick us off and tell us a little bit about our Eco Ambassadors program and the thinking behind the program this summer.
Thank you, Tara. This is really a pleasure to be with all of you, and most of you are friends and familiar faces, so welcome again. Thanks for joining. I just wanted to share some ideas here with the program goals of the Eco Ambassadors. One is the science training. Basically, we really want to focus, like we've been doing for many years now, on the science training related aspects, getting an understanding of the science, background, getting an understanding of what the sustainable development goals are, specifically sustainable development goals on water. I think this will be the focus, and then we'll be also focusing on the eco advocacy part, which is also coming up with basic lessons from the sustainable development goals and what we will be focusing on, also translating all of that into tools, into stories, into various different local activism related work. I think that will be one of our key goals for summer. Again, the idea here is to get the science background as well as to do the eco advocacy part that go hand in hand. So we'll be focusing on, especially for the summer work, we'll be focusing on SDG goals, Sustainable Development Goals 14, which is life underwater. And we'll be focusing on a lot on science part, understanding the life around water, and then focusing on a lot of tools and getting us abreast with a lot of new ideas and storytelling ideas and platforms that we could use. So over to you, Tara. Thank you for having me here.
Sorry about that, I was on mute. So now just to hear a little bit, one of our partners in this summer's program will be SDGs Today, which is part of the Sustainable Development Solutions Network, and helping us have access to their tools that we'll be using to do the mapping and telling those stories. And just to tell us a little more about their work and that aspect of the program, we would like to invite Mariam Rabi'i to tell us a little bit about SDGs Today.
Thank you. Thank you, Tara, for that introduction. And hi, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be part of this important initiative and have the opportunity to share our work with you. So as Tara mentioned, I work on a project called SDGs Today. The SDGs are a set of 17 global goals that aim to promote and achieve social justice, economic prosperity, and environmental sustainability by 2030. The interagency and expert group on SDG indicators developed over 230 indicators to help countries measure and monitor progress towards implementing the SDGs. Unfortunately, much of the data used to measure these indicators are out of date or in some cases just simply not available. So there's an urgent need for timely data about the SDGs to help us understand the state of our world now, as opposed to 5 years ago, so that we can plan for a sustainable future. To help us map where people are and how they can access basic services, or to track deforestation and global fishing activities, or to combat a fast-spreading virus, we need data about the location of these events in order to make decisions in a timely manner. So to help advance the curation and production of timely and geospatial data for the SDGs, SDSN launched SDGs Today under the leadership of Professor Jeffrey Sachs, and in partnership with the National Geographic Society and Esri, which is the company that supplies geographic information system software. SDGs Today isn't the official source of data for the SDGs, but we feature real-time and timely data and offer resources that could help countries, institutions, and civil society members to produce, share, engage, and interact with the data and help ensure that we meet the global goals by 2030. We work on three main activities. So we manage a data hub. We work with various researchers and organizations to access, visualize, and analyze data for the SDGs. We're also working on developing GIS models and data sets in-house at SDSN, which is more of a recent development within our team. We also create data-driven stories using the ArcGIS story map tool to contextualize the data within the larger SDG framework and to highlight how this data is impacting our plans for a sustainable future, or what actions we need to take to further that agenda. You'll learn more about this tool in the summer program, but the ArcGIS Story Maps tool allows users to combine interactive maps with multimedia content and text to tell stories. We also work on creating educational material to help our users learn about the SDGs and geospatial information systems, or GIS, and how the intersection of these two fields can help us advance the 2030 agenda. We're very excited to collaborate with Esri and the Eco Ambassadors program to create geospatial resources for this summer program, and to learn about the amazing work that students are doing to address the climate crisis and help amplify and feature those stories. That's all I have to share with you today, and I'll hand it back to you, Tara.
Thank you so much, Mariam. That was a great intro, a little background on the SDGs and the work you're doing and the important need that all of the students can help fulfill with this work this summer. So let's start to dig into the issue a little bit. SDG 14, Life Below Water. What kind of research is already being done in this area? What are some of the needs that we still have? And just to kind of, make sure we're all familiar with SDG 14. It calls on us to conserve and sustainably use the oceans, seas, and marine resources for sustainable development. So that's the broad umbrella, the theme that we are hoping to invite student projects on this summer. And to talk to us more in depth about this issue, we are very happy to have our partner, Dr. Joaquim Goes from Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory at the Earth Institute of Columbia University. Professor Goes studied in Goa at the University of Bombay in India, and did his doctoral fellowship in Japan. He is a pioneer in this area, studying carbon cycling in the sea, climate impacts on marine ecosystems, and the socioeconomic implications, which we know the SDG framework, we don't want to just look at the technical fixes, but how does this impact society and the different inequities we see, making those connections. So Dr. Goes is a great expert in that area. He's done a lot of work mentoring undergraduates, graduates, and even high school students to do research in this area. And he's published over 120 papers, has been featured on public broadcasting service, newspapers and magazines. So we're very happy to have him with us today to talk a little bit more about his work. And I'm just going to put this slide up here that shows some images he shared with us of some of the student-led research he's helped facilitate. So I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Goes. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Tara. That was a very nice introduction. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. My research is actually focused on how ecosystems are changing and responding to the assault by human beings in various forms. And one of the big issues that we are dealing with today is global warming and climate change. And from our work, we have found out that the tropics, people living in the tropics and the subtropics are actually disproportionately impacted by what is happening. We often hear about the Arctic melting, the Antarctic melting, but really the changes that people are seeing in their day-to-day lives are happening in the tropics. So if you go to a country like India or the Middle East, today there's a big cyclone brewing in the Arabian Sea, and it is going to affect the western part of India and maybe the Middle East as well. But 5 years ago, we didn't have this problem. And so one of the reasons that this is occurring is the warming that is taking place. The Northern Hemisphere is warming at an alarming rate. The snow caps in the Himalayan mountains are shrinking, and that affects it causes an imbalance in the atmospheric cycles. And so we are studying how this impact of warming is affecting marine ecosystems. And in my lab, most of the research that students come and do is really working with microorganisms. And the projects can range from small biochemistry projects to genomic kind of projects. And there's a lot that these microorganisms tell us when we study their genomics, their transcriptomic responses, their metabolomic responses, or their physiological responses. And so students come, they spend about 5 weeks in our lab, and they get the training and understand the real problem that is happening. So these organisms actually help us tell the story. And our lab is an open lab. We try and accommodate as many students as we can, both from high school, undergrads, and also they work with graduate students as well. So each group works in teams. They decide on what kind of problem that they want to tackle. We give them a broad canvas. And so that is how we encourage the students to plan their own research. They take ownership of the project themselves. And at the end of the project, they're supposed to write a report and present it in front of an audience. So our institute, Lamont Doherty, has been very welcoming of students because you are going to inherit the future that we leave behind for you. So it's important that you are well prepared to tackle on these problems. The other issue that we deal with is we are in an age now where we use plastics for everything. And in my lab, although this was not part of my research, we have started working on plastics in the ocean. And right from the time we wake up to the time we go to bed, we touch plastics. So for instance, when you wake up in the morning, you touch flip a switch on, it's made out of plastic today. You go to your bathroom and use your gadgets, everything is plastic. So even at the end of the day, when you're shutting down and you look at your smartphone, that is plastic. So everything is plastics today. But the problem is that we have not found an effective way of recycling these plastics. And for long, we have taken this approach that we can put it into landfills or we can throw it anywhere. But it has, a large part of it has ended up in the oceans. And today, if you look at any microorganism in this, not microorganism, but animal in the sea, you'll find that their guts are infested with plastics. So one of the big things that students have been helping in my lab is study different forms of plastics. Students come and do projects on the things that we use on a day-to-day basis, like if you buy fish from the market, you want to know how much of plastics is in there, they work on projects like this. Like, for instance, there was a bunch of students who came from the Uncommon Charter schools in Brooklyn, and they said that they wanted to work on shrimp. And we decided that we would sample shrimp from different grocery stores. And they came up with something, a very unusual finding about the shrimp from a particular country that was reared in culture that had the most amount of plastics. So its guts were full of plastics. And they did some more digging into it, and they found out that the shrimp in this country were being fed with a feed that contained plastics. And the reasons why the feed company was doing this is what the addition of plastics makes those pellets a little lighter. And so it would allow the shrimp to grab at them instead of sinking to the bottom. But these little minor tricks that people do with their products, we do not see, they do not visualize what is happening at the end of the food chain. So if you're not used to deveining your shrimp, you could end up with the plastic in your belly. And the reason why it is bad is because these plastics are non-polar compounds. So they tend to attract things like pharmaceuticals, which are non-polar, trace metals, and this can be harmful to the human gut. But can you imagine what would happen to a smaller organism like an oyster or a mussel that, they are filter feeders and they continuously take in these plastics along with the food that they eat. So these are the kinds of projects that we do. We go out into the water and we sample. The students get the samples back to the lab and they analyze the samples themselves. We give them the protocols and they prepare their results at the end. And William, who's here, had his student come and spend some time in our lab, and his student worked on sand crabs. And so he came up with some interesting findings as well. So yeah, our lab is very open to any student who's interested. You just have to write to us at least about 2 months in advance so that we can make sure that we can accommodate you. And many a times we try our best that if we cannot accommodate the student, we'll try and place him with somebody else. So feel free to reach out to me or Radhika or Tara, and they will guide you how to go about it. The other thing that I would like to mention is that we also encourage students who have got interest in art, poetry, and songwriting. We found that was a really effective way of communicating your results to the public. And we saw this with one small example from a school in the Berkshire. And the students came and spent some time and they were watching the others doing the work. And within about a month, they sent me a booklet containing poetry, songs, and they also made a video game about this little organism that we found is completely taking over the Arabian Sea. So come to our lab if you have any interest in any aspects of SDG 14. Our challenge is to communicate to the world how we need to protect the oceans and life beneath the sea. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that very compelling presentation on your research and for having such a welcoming lab. We hope that learners can take advantage of that this summer. So let's just go a little bit over the actual goals and the activities that we have planned for the summer. And this will continue to evolve, but just to give you kind of an overall picture. So our goals for the summer, we want to increase awareness of and action related to our ocean's most pressing problems, which we just heard about some of them. We want to engage young people in solutions, finding those solutions through ArcGIS and storytelling. So how can we help take data, which can maybe sometimes feel dry, and bring it to life so that people can really connect with the problem and the solution and understand how they can play a role in it. And then we want to create a foundation of engaging educational materials related to GIS, storytelling, and oceans-related conservation that we can continue to use for future programs. So any of the content, the stories that you all help produce this summer, we will add those to our collection of resources and be sharing those out with more people. So we want to help grow this movement and grow the availability of helpful resources that educators and learners and advocates can use to help push these solutions out further. Some of the expected competencies or skills that we hope that you will take away from this program are, we hope you gain knowledge on oceans and how those problems are related to the various sustainable development goals, the different intersections with other sustainable development goals. We want you to gain access to scientists like Dr. Iyengar, like Dr. Goes, policymakers, climate journalists, researchers, and become aware of their research to expand your own research and your own advocacy. We want you to become a part of a network of other young people who are working to facilitate this change, this exchange of ideas and brainstorming on solutions. And then very practically speaking, we hope you learn skills to collect real-time data, learn how to use GIS to do mapping of that data, learn how to tell compelling stories about these issues and the solutions, and to help create those kinds of lesson plans, content that you can use to teach peers, teach community members, and others. So that's what we're looking for you to get out of this program. And then in terms of the timeline, today is just kind of an info session to talk more about what we're all doing, but the actual launch will be in early June. June 8th is World Oceans Day, so there'll be a launch event then to kind of kick things off and have a first workshop. Then there will be online ArcGIS training modules that will guide you to take. We'll do a storytelling workshop in July to kind of brainstorm how to tell compelling stories, what are the different ways you can do that. Then there'll be ongoing over the course of the summer, there'll be mentorship support for the different participants with the scientists and other experts in our network. And then as we go on and the research starts to take shape, we'll engage folks in panel discussions with the youth participants to bring you together to talk about your work. And then we'll invite you to create story maps using ArcGIS to publish to our own microsite that we'll be building on the Esri website that will have other resources for the Eco Ambassador program. And then we'll invite participants to also test and provide feedback on some of the different SDGs oriented content that we'll be developing. So that's just a little bit about what we'll all be working on. And so now we kind of want to spend the rest of the workshop today to just help start brainstorming ideas. So we have a couple clips that we want to play for you here. So we have a couple experts who took some time to kind of share their thoughts on how they think ArcGIS and storytelling can be useful. So I'm just gonna play them for you here. We have William Bertolotti with us on the call, but it might be a little meta for you, but I'm gonna play a clip of your video here. Let's hope this works. Are you seeing my the YouTube coming up here?
I think Tara, you'll have to stop the screen share and then do the YouTube
share. Okay.
Yeah.
That quickly. Start from here.
I think ArcGIS has a lot of potential here. So microplastics and plastic pollution is emerging as a 21st century scourge. And there, of course, there's a great opportunity for students, educators, and
we still can't see the video.
Yeah, I think if everyone puts off their video screen, then the bandwidth will be improved.
You're not seeing are you seeing my screen, but it's just black, or you're not seeing the screen at all?
We're not seeing your screen at all.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Like it doesn't even show that you're screen sharing.
Okay, what just happened? How about now?
Today we'll be discussing.
We see your screen now, but nothing's playing.
Okay. It looks like it's just loading. Sorry, I don't know if this is on my end.
I could just summarize if that might be helpful.
Why don't we do that, and I'll work on pulling up the other one.
Okay, all right. Actually, that's perfect because I'll summarize and then I'll have to transition over to another meeting. But just some ideas. When we look at GIS, there really is so much potential for communicating data using different types of media. And just some thoughts, we could, let's say, have a quantitative representation of, let's say, microplastics, plastics pollution counts over a large geographic area. And maybe then from there start exploring, what geographic and environmental factors might account for these variations in pollution. Or let's say we took the artistic angle, just the idea of creating documentaries, creating narratives of our own local natural environments and posting those to GIS so that, any given person could look at our region and see, the natural beauty that our environments offer us. And then, just as we were discussing now, I had this idea, maybe one cool thing we could do over the summer is maybe if there's a way that we could go to the beaches, do a cleanup, collect some of the plastic waste, and maybe create location-specific murals using that debris, right? Create actual physical art with an environmental message. It'd be very interesting. Overall, I think GIS is such an important skill. It's a great way to communicate. And I feel as a 21st century skill for many of you students, it's very eye-catching. So, thank you.
Thank you.
And count me in on this, and I'm looking forward to collaborating.
Can I say something? That's a brilliant idea. We also do, since we are talking about SDG 14, we do regular surveys during summer, and we collect water from different spots in the Hudson River, in Long Island, in the East River. And the goal is to find out which are the places which are hotspots for these plastics. And then when you combine it with data of circulation of the water movements, you can find out what is their fate, where do they end up, how much of it goes into the ocean, into the ocean food web. So these kinds of problems can be solved with GIS tools. So if someone is interested in that, we could definitely help.
Great. So let's hope my connectivity works a little better this time. And I'm going to show you another video that we have prepared, just a short few-minute video from one of our longtime eco ambassadors, Joaquim Goes, to talk about his research he's been doing also on microplastics and what he thinks ArcGIS can contribute to helping to tell that story. Are you seeing my screen?
Hi, my name is Ishan Bharadwaj. I'm an eco ambassador from Millburn, New Jersey. When I learned the definition of microplastics, I thought, why is everyone so on top of microplastics? If they're smaller, aren't they better because they're not big and clogging up the ocean? I was completely wrong. Microplastics are worse than macroplastics because they're in the oceans, they're on land, and they're even in the air we breathe. But that's not all. They're in the water we drink. But that's not possible, right? Because if the water gets filtered, shouldn't the water get purified? So what are microplastics? Microplastics are small particles of plastic that are smaller than 5 millimeters. They're classified into 3 groups: microfibers, microbeads, and microfragments. Microplastics are so small that sometimes they can pass through a filtration process without even being filtered out. Last year, as a part of Eco Ambassadors program, I wanted to understand how big this microplastic problem is. To start with, I tested a sample from my tap water, and guess what? I found microplastics. I collected more and more samples and recorded data from different counties in New Jersey and compared the results. So I was wondering, if the water gets filtered, then shouldn't the microplastics be gone? Well, here's where my apparatus comes in handy. I made a vacuum suction filtration system at home with a Buckner funnel and a few other things. The whole DIY filtration system cost me about $7 to $8 to make. To collect the microplastics though, I used a filter paper with a pore size of 3 microns. Now to know if the microplastics were actually collected, I put the filter paper underneath the microscope, and there they were. Tiny microplastic pieces that were unknown to the naked eye that we drink without any clue. So I collected samples from 13 different counties in New Jersey and analyzed the data. But now with this powerful tool called GIS mapping, I can possibly expand my project and extend my research to a much bigger area, and also collaborate and infer from data collected from other regions. I can collect samples and actually have the exact location and create a data visualization using maps. This map is for global fishing activity. In my scenario, for example, if I had 4 counties that had a really high microplastic amount and I visualized where they were, I could predict where a future county could have a high amount of microplastics. In my research, I found some counties have exceptionally high levels of microplastic pollution. Through visualization of data, I can possibly check what the source of water is. Could it be groundwater or surface water that has more microplastics? Other students can also do research in other counties and states so that people can share, view, and analyze their data. And here are some more pictures of the microplastics I found. So the summer 2021 Eco Ambassador participants will work through the GIS, storytelling, and oceans content with the final goal in mind, to each create an original story made with ArcGIS story maps about ocean threats and conservation. I'm so excited for this summer program, and it can open up so many new paths for you too. Hope to see you there.
All right. I think that was very inspiring for all of us. We're always inspired by Ishan and his amazing research and great ideas. So let's get back to our PowerPoint here. And now we are going to start again with the brainstorming, but we're going to hear from some other very experienced student researchers who've been part of our programs in different capacities. We have Charlotte Munson with us, who's a student of Sustainable Development and Business Management at Columbia University. And she's been a big part of a lot of our different research projects across different issues at the Earth Institute, at the Center for Sustainable Development. She's been part of some of Radhika's research studying fluoride levels in public water sources in India. And that's a great project that has been, the data has been mapped to help tell that story. So she can speak a little bit about her ideas of how you can brainstorm on topics and use mapping in different ways. And then we also have Jeremy Zimmerman, who just graduated, congratulations, from the dual degree program studying political humanities and sustainable development. So I think our general question to both of you is to just speak a little bit about the kind of research you've done along according to the SDGs, different SDG issues, and how you think ArcGIS can be a beneficial tool to help bring those stories of these challenges and solutions to life. So let's start with you, Jeremy. Why don't you go first?
Sure. Well, first, I just want to thank everyone, for being here. It's a pretty long presentation, so thanks for sticking through. I definitely have used it a lot for various different SDGs. Most recently, I did actually an analysis of infrastructure in my local town. So I mapped all the sidewalks myself in my local town, and where they were and where there were gaps and where there were problems. And what's really cool about, like, you know, just something as simple as mapping out where sidewalks is it really gives you a clear indication of like where the problem is. And I think that's the real advantage when you're looking at things using GIS or any sort of mapping, is you can really it helps you to see where the problem is. And that's an important part, because once you know where the problem is, you can look at other things related to it. And you might find something that you didn't realize before. So I think that's really cool about GIS and why it's such a helpful tool. And also it's kind of just a lot of fun, like being able to map and being able to see your research. Like you've probably done research before where you've done a lot of reading, and that can be fun, but I think it's a lot more fun to be able to put it on a map and then to show people like, hey, this is where this thing happened. This is where we found these microplastics in the drinking water. This is where we found XYZ. And I think that's what's really cool, is it helps to build a better connection, and also helps you understand the issue better. That was very broad, but I'll leave Charlotte then to answer some more, and then
I mean, for me, I think I sort of layer the ArcGIS and quant element in after I've approached something, which is from a social science point of view, which I think is sort of one of the differences between how people like to do research. I like to ask a lot of questions first and then figure out how I can best use all the tools out there available to me to tell the story. But I know that some people, or maybe for this experiment, you say, I want to learn how to use ArcGIS and I need to ask a question that can best be shown using this technology that I have at hand. So certainly I also, if you are like me and maybe not as familiar with some of these quantitative or GIS software, don't be afraid to collaborate with somebody who is. And Tara mentioned the fluoride research that I worked on with Radhika, and that was we worked with another researcher who has used mapping a lot in his research, and so he sort of took the lead on that element, while Radhika took the lead on collecting the social science data part from it. And then you're able to put together the two researchers' expertise to tell a really complex story. So I think that that's also something important to remember, is that you don't have to be a pro at it all. Expand your network, reach out to people, and see how you can work together to get the best results.
Thank you both. Those are both great points. And Charlotte, I think what you mentioned is so key too, because the SDGs, and we're doing research, even if SDG 14 on life below water is our main focus here, we want to see those intersections, right? You mentioned the social science aspect. SDG 11 is about reducing inequalities, right? So that should cut across everything else, and we can look at how these different issues also contribute to that. And this mapping is such a great way to do that. So I think what I'd like to do now is open it up for discussion, questions. We have Charlotte, we have Jeremy here, we have Dr. Goes, we have Radhika. If anyone has questions, ideas, you want to bounce off, something you're thinking of in terms of what kind of research you might be interested in. And Charlotte also mentioned, maybe some people are a little hesitant with some of the technical quantitative aspects. That's what this summer program is for. You'll get that training, you'll get that support. So don't let that be any barrier to you. That's the point of doing the program, is to learn those things. So yeah, let's open it up. If anyone wants to type a question in the chat, or if anyone wants to go ahead and come off mute, we welcome you to do that. And if we have any educators on the call as well who are interested in sharing this with your students and you also have questions, we'd love to hear from you as well.
Yeah, I just want to second what Charlotte and Jeremy said, that once you start putting your data in a visual form, things start popping up. And I'll give you an example of a student from Barnard who worked with us on studying pharmaceuticals on microplastics. So we collected samples from the East River, from the Hudson River, and she started putting the data together, and she found a hotspot in Newtown Creek, which is just across from Wall Street. And there was this huge, most of the plastics there contained hypertension medication, high blood pressure medication. And so we were wondering why, that particular area was rich in this medication. And it turns out, there are many people who work in Wall Street who probably under a lot of pressure, and they have to calm their nerves. And so they consume a lot of this blood pressure medication that finds its way into the sewer system and ultimately into the oceans. But in the sewer treatment plants, they actually get adsorbed onto these plastics, and they're released along with this different pharmaceuticals. So that's an example of how the use of ArcGIS helped the student understand how she could connect her data with, with other things as well.
Thank you for that. It looks like we have a question from Oigoga. Would you want to come off mute and ask your question?
Good evening, everyone. I'm calling, my name is Onu Oigoga, and I am calling from Nigeria. I don't know what time of the day it's there, your places, but it's about 9:14 p.m. right here. So I'm happy to meet everyone. I am a tutor at a secondary school, a high school, and I actually got interested by the presentation made by Echo Schools regarding this program. And I was wondering, my school is not yet officially a member of Echo Schools. I know Echo School is like affiliated with FEE. Am I right?
So Echo Schools probably is a different program, Oigoga. So I think maybe we don't require any official affiliation. It's just a summer program open to anyone. In fact, I will be learning to make all these different maps myself. Feel free to, participate. Students can participate.
Okay, that's right. Thanks for the correction. So I would like my students to benefit from that program, and I would be glad if I got the requirements so that we could make the preparation to key them in. So like I said, it's a high school and not the tertiary level yet. So I'll be pleased if I'm given the guidelines on how to get them involved. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And I think you've done the first step already by joining today. And the next step, I think, is if you have certain students in mind, you can reach out to me, you can reach out to Radhika. We get you on our email list, and then you'll get all the communications about the next steps for the summer program. It will be more sessions like this where we'll be covering different topics, doing different trainings, and then also connecting you with the online resources that we'll have. So if you want to just drop your email perhaps in the chat, and then we can make sure that you're on that list. And then once you have students, if you want to add them as well, we can do that. I think that's the best next step.
Thank you very much.
And then we have a question here in the chat from Saliu Bashiru from Nigeria, who works with an NGO called MCDO, interested in how development workers like this group who are working on SDGs and want to use GIS skills, how you can leverage this program. So our Eco Ambassador program is really about lifelong learning. We have worked a lot with middle school students, high school students, but anyone can be part. So anyone from your NGO who is interested in this, especially if you're working on SDG 14, although these skills will be transferable to other areas as well, we definitely would welcome you to be part of this. And same thing, I would recommend just adding your email, and we can make sure that we have you on the communication list for all the events and details that we'll have going on for the program this summer. Anyone have anything else to add to that? How about the students here? Any of you willing to maybe just share some ideas about issues you're interested in, even if you don't have a research topic so formulated yet? That's what we want to kind of help you out with, things that you see to be challenges in your community relating to SDG 14, what you'd be interested in. And again, you can share out loud or you can share in the chat. Or any other questions you have about the program. Ooh, I see here from Liam McNerney, your class will be making a survey for your school about microplastics. So that will be interesting. It would be interesting if that survey could be designed in such a way that the findings could be mapped. So that could be something to consider when designing the survey. And then we have Benjamin Coe from Readington Middle School, and you're working on a survey on microplastics and how they are affecting our ecosystems. So I see there's so much interest on microplastics. And one beautiful thing, as Ishan mentioned in his video, and Will Bertolotti also had mentioned in his discussion, was if you're working on something where you live and other people are working on something similar, we can use this program to help you coordinate and be collecting the same kinds of data in different places and map it on one big map with all of your inputs together. So that's, we can use forums like this to find those connections. So people who are interested on working on a similar issue in different places, this is such a great tool to help us kind of bring that work together. Maybe Liam or Ben, either of you, if you would be interested in maybe elaborating a bit on what you're thinking in terms of the survey, what kinds of questions you'd want to ask on that. And kind of the process for how you're going about doing that work. Are the students driving it, or how is that being done?
I have a question. Can you work with students from other schools, from different schools in different towns and cities to compare the data?
Right, I think that's what I was just kind of referring to here with these two examples that we see in the chat about microplastics. We would love to have this forum be an opportunity to create those connections and facilitate that. So as I think that will be part of the communication as we go out this summer, we start to hear what students are interested in studying. If we see people considering similar topics, that we can have them collaborate so that the maps can show what people are finding in different places. So I think that's a great idea.
I also have a second question. Can we collaborate with people across nations, for instance, to see how changes in the marine ecosystem is affecting like fishermen in our country versus in other countries?
I want to think that the sky's the limit on this, right? That's the great thing. I love that we have people here today already from different countries. So I think if we can do that, that will be great. It will just require sort of coordinating on what kind of data is being collected. There's also a lot of existing data sets that SDSN has and Esri has that we can access as a starting point, and you can supplement that, you can see what's missing. So those will be things that we'll hope to guide you through. But over these next few weeks, as we prepare for the launch on June 8th, we hope that people can start to hone in on those ideas, and we can help connect you to people who are interested in doing similar work as we hear those ideas come in. It looks like we have a hand raised. Letavish RN iPhone, if you want to go ahead and share your question. And apologies if my pronunciation is wrong for anyone whose name I've said. Please correct me.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I don't know much about the program. Is it virtual or is it in person?
It will be virtual. Online.
Okay.
We'll be putting together a website that has all the training resources, but we'll be doing face-to-face events like this as well.
Okay, great. I know that I've been to a few of the sustainability webinars, and with the water reserves and stuff like that. And it would be interesting to sort of maybe get them involved. But I didn't have time to read through the parameters of this program. Is it just that you develop surveys and then try to sketch it out on maps related to something, or?
So that's something we want to kind of help you think through. It can be a survey, it could be existing data sets, it could be like Ishan's example where he's actually collecting samples of water and searching for microplastics in them around where he lives. So
Cool.
it really depends on what the capacity is of who's taking part. But as those ideas are coming in or those questions, we'll be available to kind of help shape that with you. So yeah, there's not like a set requirement has to be a survey, it has to be this. But the main thing is that whatever it is will be mapped somehow, whether that's for your own project mapping it or what we've talked about, some of the ideas we've heard today already of bringing people who are working on similar issues in different places together to do kind of a joint map.
Okay. Yeah. I was watching this program called This Week in Virology, or TWIV, and they were talking about how in a lot of high density COVID neighborhoods that they test the water for the amount of viral load in the water, and a lot of the water can't be recycled into being pushed towards the treatment centers. So like they're taking the water out of circulation and burying it. So I don't know, that's kind of an interesting topic because they're saying that there might be a water shortage.
That is a very fascinating topic.
But also our school has really high amounts of lead levels and a lot of our faucets and waters systems are turned off.
That is the same problem we have in the school district where I live as well. Everyone gets their bottles of water trucked in.
Yes.
Yeah.
This would
Which
be
is
really
also
go ahead, Lev. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, so it's Megan is fine. Sorry that it's my last name up there, but I'm fine. Or Letavish, I don't care. So I was working with the sustainability office and doing the climate youth summit for the DOE with some of my students, and they were saying that they were gonna be able to give us some filters. So we could talk about that later. If you would maybe apply for that too.
Yeah, I think maybe a next step is if we'll put all of our contacts and everything in the chat, and then if you want to reach out to us, we can kind of take this, have another conversation to brainstorm these different ideas and come up with a plan. But it sounds like there's no shortage of great ideas that you have here.
Okay, thank you.
We will try and give you some of the basic measurements that you have to make. Say for instance, if you're collecting plastics from a small locality or looking at lead pollution, it's really important to have the coordinates, the GIS coordinates. So if you have a smartphone, even if you're mapping a small area, you have to have this metadata that goes along with your data. And so it becomes really easy to start plotting the data in ArcGIS and creating these visuals that can show you how how your area is impacted by the lead or microplastics, and where are the hot spots. And you can go to a town hall meeting and share your results over there and try to, shape policy, ask them to make changes. And so the most important step is to gather this data and present it in a form that is compelling, where you can tell your story. And without those visuals, sometimes it becomes really hard. So I think as part of this program, we will try and see that you get some protocols. What are the basic kinds of information that you collect? To to help you, map this out in ArcGIS.
I see one of the comments in the chat here from Ria G from Readington Middle School that you're working on supporting your township's plastic bag ban. And there's so many towns doing that. What were you thinking in terms of how you might turn that into some kind of project for this summer? Maybe something about how much, once places where such a ban has been implemented, what's been the change in waste collection, recycling collection. I mean, there's so many things you could do with it, but I'd be interested to know what you're thinking about with that. I see also from Oslem, is ArcGIS a free application? My understanding is that we'll have a set of licenses that we'll be able to share with participants in the summer program so that you don't have to worry about that aspect. Normally it's not, the full programs, it's not free, but we'll be able to provide it for people who are in the program. That's right, Radhika, right? Okay.
Yeah, and I have to put a plug out for any Mac users that QGIS is another good alternative if you cannot or do not want to install Windows onto your Mac computer.
Yes, that's important. ArcGIS only works on Windows, so that is a limitation of the tool.
You can run a Windows operating system on your Mac computer, but that has issues too sometimes. So I actually prefer working in QGIS.
Yeah, and there's alternatives as well, and a lot of the skills you learn, even if it's you learning it through ArcGIS, which is perhaps the standard across a lot of universities, it's applicable to the other tools. They're very similar. They might have just a slightly different location of the button, but the tools are the same. And so it really is a skill you can take to other programs.
Right. I learned on QGIS, but I can use ArcGIS without. It was a really simple learning curve.
Miriam.
Yeah, Tara, I just wanted to jump in and say for the purposes of this program, I think we'll be using ArcGIS Online, which anyone can use. So it doesn't matter whether you're working with a Mac or Windows.
Thank you for that clarification. So we don't have to worry about what kind of computer you have. That's no barrier. We'll be able to use the online version.
I have another question.
Please.
Is there a way to get like the acronyms explained, because I'm not familiar with these apps or the acronyms that are going around?
I think maybe this was just an introduction. We didn't want to get into too many details. The idea was just to get your ideas going, engage in, just the introduction on sustainable development goals. So, maybe at this stage, maybe we can focus on sustainable development goals 14, what those goals state, maybe do like a quick search, and then if there is any SDG or SDG 14 related research that you want to come up with, just getting those ideas, I think will be very helpful. We will get into the data, we will get into not using the data, we will get into other things, a little bit later. So, I think the idea was just to approach where can we get, these ideas, how are our ideas aligned to the Sustainable Development Goals 14 for now, and we'll go over all the other. So let's not worry about other details as of now, because that will be the course of the workshop. We don't want to scare anyone away with all the acronyms and all the other technical jargons going on, but just to keep working with us. slowly as we proceed. At this stage, if we can get just some ideas on what is what is SDG 14 and what are some of your ideas around SDG 14, I think that will be enough, and we will have multiple workshops and we will go over this together as we proceed. If people are feeling nervous, I just wanted to put that thought out there.
And one other thought too, we want this to be used as a storytelling tool, right? How can we map other multimedia? So you're not just looking at kind of, a static map, but you can click on a spot and bring that location to life. You can see pictures or videos of what's going on in that location. So like Ria's example about what you're doing in your school to try to reduce plastic waste or improving the waste systems. You could click on the location where your school is and have some article or some video that talks about those measures that are being taken in your school, and then other people who are doing similar measures that also plot their school on the same map, kind of answering that same question. So that's not necessarily a mapping of quantitative data, but it's a mapping of these stories of how a similar issue is being tackled in different places. So it's really about the limits of our own creativity of how we can use these tools. But I just wanted to put that out there too. And thank you to Charlotte and Jeremy for helping out with some of the acronyms here. GIS, Geographic Information System. So that's what that means.
And yeah, I was absolutely terrified to learn it. I thought it was going to be the hardest thing. I took a class on it, and it's actually a lot easier than it sounds. I think to Radhika's point, the acronyms are kind of a turnoff, but it's actually quite straightforward, especially if you take the time to learn it. And there are so many great tutorials, and this program will help too. So.
Any other questions, thoughts, concerns, ideas?
I just wanted to add, like, what I think is really cool about this program is, like, these are skills that are, first of all, pretty new for a lot of people. Like, these tools did not exist in the way they do now 20 years ago. So it really is a new skill. It existed in a form, but not in the same way where you have an interactive online map. And two, like, this is a skill that oftentimes is taught at the university level. So the fact that you're being able to get this experience in middle school, high school, and at this young age, I think is so cool. And being able to have these experiences now in making your stories and telling your story is so important, because these are skills that like me and Charlotte learned in university. I did not know this when I was your age. And so I think that that's really cool about this program. And, they're giving you the tools and training for this, and it's normally quite expensive. I mean, I had to pay a university to teach me this, so it's really cool, and you all should definitely take advantage of it. And the end products are absolutely beautiful. Like, it's like a website, and you scroll, and there's like pictures, and it's as if you're on Google Maps, and it's really interactive. And you'll be like, it'll just be really fun and cool. So don't be afraid. Be excited. I think that should be the takeaway.
That is excellent, Jeremy. Thank you for that great point. This is a great opportunity. I'm excited. I'm learning it myself as well, some of these things. And yeah, I have found it to be very user-friendly. It might be a little intimidating at first, but once you get in there, it's very user-friendly. And again, that is part of what this program is. You'll get that training. You'll learn how to do that. We'll provide those modules. And I just want to point out in the chat, Miriam also just shared a link to SDGs Today that shows different examples of story maps. And on their website, you can also filter by SDG. So you can look at how maps are being used to tell these stories of different issues. So we encourage everyone to visit that to get more ideas. And we'll share all these links out as a follow-up email as well. So if you missed anything in the chat, we'll definitely share that out. But I realize we're actually a little bit over time now. So just one last call for any other questions or thoughts, and then I think we can start to wrap it up.
All right, if I can add something, excuse me. I'm Betsy Freeman, I'm an educator, and many of my students are here today, I think very shyly, thinking my research isn't ready to share and bring out into the open. So I think I first want to say, Tara, Radhika, Jeremy, Mariam, and Charlotte, and Dr. Goes, my God, from the educator standpoint, thank you so much for making your expertise accessible, but definitely, allowing kids to feel empowered to study their environment, to understand human interaction and impact, and definitely the equity issue. So after that, I think my question is for next step, because I know many of the students who came today do have research and probably will have, there probably some of their questions to share, and that I think that first slide skipped by that probably had what the next meeting is or what the next step. Can you share what that looks like?
Betsy, so meanwhile Tara is bringing up that slide, I just wanted to mention that this was just an introduction to our summer program, and the idea is to focus on SDG 14 related things. And next we go over to where can we find resources on SDG 14. So the idea is to first gain some insights on SDG 14 itself, because otherwise we go over, Google searches, this, that. Our next panel, hopefully around the end of May or very early June, we will have another set of panelists who will come and discuss where can we find resources, educational tools, as well as other resources on SDG 14 itself. And going forward, then we will have, as far as stated here, June 8th will be our discussion on the data. So we have lots of time up till now, till June 8th, to focus on our research question, information, where we can find things. Let's take it slowly, and then we will have all the materials up on our website as well. We are partnering with SDGs today. Mariam is here, and Esri, where they will be starting their Oceans Day launch on June 8th. So we can focus on the data, the modules, softwares, other things as we go along. Tara, you want to mention anything else that I missed out?
Just to say that in addition to that, we'll have another sort of preparatory planning workshop, as Radhika just mentioned, later this month, and then the official kickoff will be World Oceans Day, June 8th. But I think I shared in the chat, and we'll share it again, our Eco-Ambassador page of our ed4sd.org website has a sign-up form linked there at the bottom. So you can sign up there, or just put your email in the chat now, email us, and we'll make sure that we have a list going with everyone, so we can start having those conversations with you and make sure you have the details for those upcoming workshops later on June 8th. And we'll fine-tune details for future events as we go along. But I think those are the next steps. So make sure we have your contact information and know that you want to be part of the program, and we'll make sure we follow up with the next steps. These are all the partners that we have as part of our summer program, as we've heard from many of them today. And then here's some of our contact info. So here in the red text, you see the ed4sd.org. So the Learning Hub page is where we have some learning resources, but if you go to ed4sd.org, there's an Eco-Ambassador page there. That's where the sign-up form is. But you can also just email us, drop your email in the chat right now as well. And we'll share all those websites and all those next steps out as a follow-up for anyone who registered for this event. And then going forward, we'll follow up with people who are signed up with the next. So any other questions, or I think we can close for today, and we'll definitely look forward. We had so many great ideas from everyone today. Thank you so much for our speakers for sharing your experiences and your ideas. And I'm very excited. I think the potential here to collaborate even across schools. I saw the idea here from Philadelphia. If you have a teacher who supports you in this, who's connected to teachers at other schools, get the word out, get the word out, get more people interested in this, because you could have someone in that Philadelphia suburb get a school over there involved and have a student collect the data, and you do a map together. So those are just ideas. We can use this month that we have now before June 8th to get more people involved, recruit more folks who you might collaborate with. And I think that'll be very exciting. We're very excited for this summer. And thank you all so much for being with us today. I look forward to the next steps.